as they believe their only goal is to try to promote Western ideals.
In pursuing the actual market strategy for how Facebook is going to enter China, it's first important to evaluate the brand strategy and how the brand is going to come forward. And for Facebook, the most important part of this is maintaining a standardized global image, which it's done successfully in previous years and made it a large international power. This sort of manifests in areas like the rights and responsibilities, where you'll have the same agreement that you'll make to join Facebook. The advertising and sales protocol, we will not spam, and we'll have similar customer service to the global, and operating principles, where we'll have no misleading, confusing, or defrauding conduct on Facebook.
So when a company goes overseas, there are certain aspects of its product or service that it keeps standard, and certain aspects that it adapts. Facebook is no different. In the terms of standardizing competencies, Facebook will keep its friending system, its wall, profile, and home pages exactly the same that you see in the United States version. However, in order to cater to local Chinese taste, it will adapt certain aspects, such as restricting access to the Facebook China service to only people with Chinese IP addresses. This is very similar to what Facebook originally did when it first started and limited the service only to harvard.edu email addresses. Secondly, censorship. Much like QQ.com, Facebook will have a list of words that are unable to be used on the service. This will be political and vulgar terms. Lastly, in the category of application development, Facebook will be partnering with Kaizen 001 to develop games to suit local Chinese tastes.
When discussing pricing for Facebook, there are two things that need to be addressed: business-to-consumer prices and business-to-business prices. Business-to-consumer is free. Facebook is a free service for all of its users and always will be. Business-to-business will be standard advertising rates for the local Chinese businesses that wish to advertise on Facebook. Facebook in China will follow Western methods, and its methods that they use all around the world and similar by price per click, price per view, and price per banner. But the prices will be adapted for the Chinese purchasing power and exchange rate and the competitive adjustment within the country, and the prices are shown on the screen. Distribution and placement in China is very complex. The operations personnel behind Facebook will transition into the current Kaizen 001 headquarters in Beijing. The servers behind China will also be shifted into the country to provide for local government control through strategic business units within the country. The distribution will be the same. It will be accessed through the internet via computers, and in order to maximize distribution and access in China, Facebook will support the government village phone program by building the necessary technology infrastructure in rural areas that currently lacks. The promotion of Facebook will rely heavily on word of mouth, as it currently does throughout the rest of the world. Facebook will continue to deliver an exemplary service and have people invite their friends, because more friends betters their own experience. We'll use the pull marketing approach to pull new consumers in by sponsoring business and sporting events and creating internet centers and donating computers to maximize the access and promote its service in rural areas.
In a similar way that pricing needs to distinguish between business to consumers and business to business, as does advertising, we need to first identify business to consumers and end users who, as Ashley said, use the site for free, and business to business advertising propositions that will be purchasing advertising space on Facebook banners to target these consumers. In doing so, we can engage business to consumer clients by interactive soft selling, which is basically a non-aggressive solicitation strategy that allows users to self-select advertisements. By engaging the virtual vacation, as Chinese consumers like to call it, we can therefore stimulate implicitly the demand of advertising space for business-to-business clients. In that way, we've evaluated some form of a supply and demand chain relationship, where an increase in supply on the consumer end, or end user end, would in fact stimulate, like I said, business-to-business clients. As Nick mentioned, our third stage being long-term operations, because we need to enter the market, we need to succeed in the market, but we need to remain flexible and account for changes in the market environment. We've outlined here a short-term scope of operations, 6 years, where you can notice some important trends. For example, in year 1, we look at market research being a very primary, as you can see in maroon on the top portion, primary section of operations, but as the years go on and Facebook becomes more acclimated to the local market, market research will diminish. In a similar way, staffing remains relatively consistent over these initial 6 years, because we expect the product and service to expand within the region, and therefore we'll need to staff our offices to service the product accordingly. This method of short-term operations allows for flexibility and allows for sustainability, accomplishing our objective of entering into the Chinese market.
Remember the tagline to the movie The Social Network. You don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies. By partnering with the Chinese government, entering into a joint venture with Kaisen001, and adapting the Facebook service for the Chinese market, it is Facebook's hope that they'll get to 1 billion friends while hopefully making a few partners. And now we'd like to begin our questions and answers section. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I think when Facebook became famous is because they started expanding outside of Harvard and became a giant social network. So when you're proposing about starting in China, you said that you're going to limit it to, I guess, Chinese IP addresses. So do you think that would undermine the image of Facebook being a vast social network?
I do not. Just like when they started with only people with harvard.edu email addresses, they had to start small before they could become big. If we came right off the bat and said, by the Chinese Facebook would allow the Chinese user to communicate with anyone in the entire world, the Chinese government would be hysterical. So by starting off small, we can slowly work with the government, employ strategies with them, and hopefully expand in the future.
And to add briefly to what Arya said, you mentioned Harvard and the comparison there. Like Arya mentioned, it's important to start small, but more importantly to gather a consumer base. Because with an initial consuming body and word of mouth promotion, which is a main element of our promotion, starting to grow within the Chinese borders, we'll then have the opportunity to expand successfully, whereas forging that initial push might be a little more difficult.
It is a step process though, and one of our end goals is to expand.
Can we follow up?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so my final question is, there are already social networking websites in China already, as you mentioned. So like, obviously, the people that are already on these social network websites, they already have domestic friends. So do you think the incentive for people to join Facebook be to essentially connect with their foreign friends? So if you can't do that, like, why would they join Facebook?
Facebook's reputation sort of precedes itself. So there are already established people and consumers in China who are part of not one, but two, but three domestic networking sites, and they are eager to join Facebook. And with the hope that they will soon be able to expand internationally with their foreign friends, we believe they will jump at the opportunity to create their domestic Facebook site, set them up, establish there, familiarize themselves with the service domestically, and then as soon as it expands, which we hope to within the 6-year projection timeline, the domestic site will be so well established that international will just transition so easily.
To add upon what Ashley said also, Facebook's statement of rights and responsibilities and customer service really precedes and that of all other domestic social networking sites in China. So using these privacy regulations and also, again, rights and responsibilities of users, Facebook differentiates itself amongst already popular social networking sites in China.
Actually, if I could just add one more thing. The Kaisen001 is targeted towards young white-collar workers, and especially in Shanghai and Beijing, the cities there and the companies are really looking to sort of grow into the Western world. So this will be a very step transition by using this Western dominant product that has become so successful internationally. So we believe that they'll be so excited to use this just domestically as a start.
More questions? One more question, please. I know you've all prepared questions.
Roy's spot back.
You can just read the question from your paper. You need one more question. Not David. Anybody else?
Are you guys going to make your advertising cheaper initially like when you go to China than it is already in the US?
We went through it a little bit quickly, so I'll just revert back to it. The pricing strategy mimics the exchange rate. So initially we'll have just a cross exchange rate to have a reflection of the US pricing, but there's an additional competitive, I guess, adjustment to the price because we used the Big Mac pricing index to identify how there is a weaker purchasing power and there is not necessarily the same kind of exact exchange. So by an additional competitive adjustment, we'll be able to account for the market differences.
Okay, thank you very much.